welcome everybody. This is Governor DAO's Speed Dating Episode 5. My name is Blake4Liberty, and I'm here with Netminer. All right, as we get started here, I'll tell you guys a little bit about Governor DAO. Governor DAO is a DAO with a focus on governance as a service. We help other DAOs with their governance and to have sound contracts and things like that set up to just make sure that everything gets going smoothly for new projects or even existing projects that want to have more sound governance and to expand what they're doing. One of our main services involves solving Sybil resistance with a non-KYC solution called Proof of Existence, which enables one voice, one vote governance, fair launch NFT drops, human gating for Discord, Telegram, play to earn gaming, metaverses, and more. I'd like to encourage everyone to check that out further at governordao.org, as well as Proof of Existence. You can learn a lot more about that at proofofexistence.xyz. With that out of the way, we're joined today by Pai Dao, BAO Finance, and Pub DAO. Netminer, would you like to introduce our first guest?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you everybody for joining in. My name is Netminer. I'm the marketing ambassador for Governor DAO, and I've been doing this for going on almost a year now. It's nice being a part of the Web3 world, and I look forward to talking to each of you. Our first guest is Pai Dao. So for Pai Dao, we're going to go ahead and have them come on stage. They're a protocol that seeks to provide ways to grow generational wealth and escape the 9-to-5 rat race. They recognize that no one can be truly free unless they're first financially free. And they're lucky to be around at a time when a radical new financial technology offers a real chance at sovereign wealth.
Hey fellas, hi. It's nice to be here. So just to give you the quick rundown, the Pai Dao kind of mission, the reason that we came into existence is we want to provide what we call ambitious wealth seekers with ways to generate real wealth over time. Now, to elaborate on what I mean by ambitious wealth seekers, we kind of picture this kind of class of people as people who hold Bitcoin, people who hold Ethereum, and then want to take the next step into kind of really harnessing the power of the DeFi space to really build wealth for themselves. This is who we're looking to cater to, people who really want to strive to achieve financial freedom. So the pain point that we're trying to address with our project is, like you say, people who are stuck in the rat race, living paycheck to paycheck with no way to generate the kind of capital that provides true financial freedom and then subsequently actual freedom in your own life. Many people try to win big with risky plays and NFTs, and ultimately end up in a worse place than they were before, getting liquidated and losing the funds completely. So the solution that we came to, and we thought a fair bit about this, what we tried to do is we offer market-tested ways to grow wealth. Our products offer a buffer against the worst that the markets can throw at you. Holding pies, or indexes in TradFi language, it's a set and forget strategy. So there's no need to monitor all your positions, and you're never going to get a margin call. DCAing into pies is the Web3 equivalent of Ray Dalio / Warren Buffett style investing. Another thing that's really cool that we do with our products is we try to take advantage of the flexibility that Web3 infrastructure offers. And as this relates to our indexes, we have this really cool feature, actually. We call it Pi Vault Tech. And you can imagine this is kind of like smart indexes. So in a traditional index, it just tracks the performance of the underlying assets. But what we do with our smart indexes is we actually activate the underlying assets, which sounds more complicated than it is. Basically, what it means is we put the underlying assets into staking and lending pools, and in return, you get an APR on this index. So you're actually earning a yield just by holding an index product. So that's two ways of generating wealth, two kind of set and forget strategies in one asset. So it's really kind of it's a way of taking the best strategies that traditional markets have to offer and then giving them that Web3 kick taking full advantage of the kind of malleability that blockchain infrastructure allows for. Well, you see, so to differentiate us from the kind of degen yield farming kind of people, you see a lot of kind of, how would you say it nicely? The kind of flexibility that's offered with Web3 infrastructure can be used really well, and it can be used really badly. The kind of really badly way is kind of using this infrastructure to like bet and make all these kind of unstable tokenomics and stuff like that. But we're coming at it from a bit of a more mature philosophy. Our thinking goes like, okay, so crypto markets are fundamentally markets. So there's a lot made about them being this kind of brand new space, and to a degree that's true. But on the whole, they are markets, and they do follow this kind of how would you say, supply and demand rules that normal markets follow. So it makes a certain degree of sense that the fundamental principles that helped the greatest investors in TradFi succeed are to some degree going to help investors in this space succeed as well. You know, when you're going into a kind of new foray, you want to take the best information you can. You want to take the best proven plans you can, and really use them to kind of build your wealth. And that's what we're really trying to do here. We're trying to take the best of the old world and inject it with the best of the new world, and that is our way to kind of provide value to people who hold our tokens.
It's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Had a few questions, if you don't mind going over them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So, why did you choose indexes as the first product to release?
Okay, yeah, sure. So so I'm going to bring this back to our mission. We want to provide a real way to generate wealth stably over time. Now, you might have heard the kind of this statistic that gets thrown around a lot about index products outperforming basically any attempt at actively managed strategies over time. This is very true. Anyone who's kind of who's tried to play the DeFi markets themselves without a kind of without maybe a solid base of knowledge has probably lost money. I mean, everyone's done it. I've done it personally. Like this is just how it goes. So when you're looking at the real brass tacks, you're looking at the real reliable ways to make money over time, assuming that is something that you actually want to do, which we are. The one product that you really just cannot get away from is indexes, and so that it makes sense to start with that as a building block. It's like an answer to the question: if you had one financial product, if you had one financial primitive that you could hold, that you know you're going to make a return on, it's an index, and so that's why we went for that first.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's a great answer. And just had two more questions. The first one being, are there any products you're working on at the minute?
Yes, no, we've got a couple of things that we're working on at the minute. We're all quite busy. So the first thing is a rebalancing of our DeFi index, which we're rebalancing it. We're trying to get the most yield out of it. We're really trying to bring that up to the current state of the DeFi market. But the more interesting thing that we're really working on at the minute is a cross-chain yield aggregator, which again sounds more complicated than it is, at least conceptually. So what that is, it's called the Uno Fund. It's part of our Auxo Vaults program. It's a way to automatically. So how would you say it? The yield farming thing. You can spend absolutely hours and hours and hours going through all the hundreds and hundreds of liquidity pools looking for the best yields. And there is a lot of alpha to be generated there. There is a lot of funds to be made there. But we kind of realized that most people just don't want to do that. Like, it takes a lot of time, and there's no reason to have a kind of an 8,000 row spreadsheet if you've got other things going on in your life, which is fair enough. So the thing that we're trying to do with the Uno Fund is we're trying to automate that entire process. We're trying to have it so you can deposit your stable coins, and they will automatically bounce around the best yield protocols. So you will make the maximum return, you get the maximum exposure with literally just a single deposit. And the place that this gets really cool is that we actually are doing this cross chain, so that one deposit and your funds get exposure to the highest yield across any chain. And the tech that we're using to do this is actually really cool. We're using the layer 0 stuff, which is a different way of kind of bridging across protocols and just ensures that there's always liquidity there. So essentially what you get from a user's point of view is you can deposit stablecoins from any chain into this vault, and you will receive the best yields across all these different platforms. We do all of that work for you, and all that you'd have to do is deposit, and then you receive the yield from the entire DeFi ecosystem.
That is really cool. Thanks for sharing that. Definitely something I want to look into after we get off of here. So nice to know you all are working on nice services like that. The last question that I had was, where do you see Pai Dao in 10 years?
In 10 years, we want to be the equivalent of a Web3 Vanguard or something like this. We want our name to be symbolic of a steadfast way to grow real wealth. We want to have people tell their stories about how did you kind of escape the rat race, how did you transition from Web2 to Web3, and we want to have Pai Dao play an integral part of that. You can look at it almost like a public goods thing, although that's kind of pushing it a bit far. What we're trying to do is we're trying to allow people to live their lives, essentially. That's what we believe in. That's what the kind of whole digital nomad thing is about. We want people to be free of the kind of the constraints of typical TradFi work and just traditional work in general. So in 10 years, we want the name Pai Dao to be synonymous with a lifestyle of freedom and free from financial oppression.
Oh, that's an awesome image, and we can't wait to see what you all have to come down the pipeline. So thanks for sharing. I think that Blake has one question to ask as well, so I'll let him ask, and then we'll get on to the next guest.
Sure thing.
Yeah, just wanted to let you speak to folks who might be worried about parking their tokens somewhere with some of the different protocols that have gone belly up recently. A lot of FUD, a lot of legitimate concern as well. What do you have to say to folks who are worried about lending protocols and yield protocols that have gone belly up and whatnot?
Okay, yeah, so there's two things that I'd like to say there. First is that I think all of the protocols that have gone, pardon my French, tits up recently have been controlled by centralized actors, and that's a big part of it. But to address the DeFi thing, obviously there's always going to be some kind of risk. There's always going to be that snake in the garden. You absolutely can't get rid of it. So what are we doing to combat that? Well, we are diversifying this. So it's not like all of this, say 100 mil is deposited into the Uno Fund vault. It's not all going to go into one place. It's going to be spread out. It's going to be diversified. So even if there are like terrible hacks and all the funds are lost out of two of the pools, a vast majority of the capital is going to remain safe. It's the same philosophy that we have with indexes. Like, diversification is the only free lunch in finance, as the saying goes. So you never ever want to be in a position where all your eggs are in one basket. You never ever want to be in a position where one hack can just completely eradicate your project, and that's something that we work really, really hard to try and avoid.
Great answer, and really enjoyed having you on. Appreciate your thoughts. Do you have a best way for folks who want to get involved with you to contact you?
Yes, so to contact me personally, just reach out on Twitter. That's absolutely fine. And to contact the DAO, the best way to join is to join the Pai Dao Discord, which you can find on the Pai Dao website at paidao.org, or I can send it to you personally if you DM me. So yeah, happy to have anybody come in and contribute, guys. We love hearing your thoughts.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, so yeah, our next guest is going to be BAO Finance, and Beowulf is going to be speaking. He's the head of the treasury and project operation at BAO Finance, has been helping the DAO for 18 months. BAO Finance is a community-driven project whose objective is to create a protocol to easily manage synthetic representation of tokenized data on the blockchain.
BAO Finance strive for, I would say, almost a year and a half now to tokenize data on chain. And it comes from a vision where everybody, not the big folks in Wall Street or in the banking ecosystem, but everyone could benefit and hold the data that runs the world in some kind of way. Because what differentiates the banking system, the TradFi of DeFi, is that they own the data. They do have risk score weather data, trends, any kind of data that they can make projection, and they can run any risk model to take those decisions. That's not the thing that we have on DeFi right now. We do have oracles that can give us token price on chain, that can give us maybe off chain data like stock price or crude oil price, but there's not too much information, too much data that is brought on chain that we can tokenize and take decisions based off. There's so many use cases that we could use in DeFi and in Web3 in general to take better decisions and to really be financially independent of the world banking system. Such use case could be to just tokenize the weather data to be able to predict if what will be the harvest rate in a specific area, or to have any metric score on the performance of politicians. It can go from different ways, and we want to build on that. BAO Finance started with, like Pai Dao said earlier, we are building Legos, building blocks. And we started small, trying to do taking grid on indexes as well. And we share some ties with Pai Dao in some way. We do love what they are doing right now. And we are building, as we speak, our first USD synthetics a USD synthetic that we think that will be the safest in the space. We've seen so many stable coins that are risky as of now, and we do believe that there's a way to really lower the risk, but also to be more convenient in the space. Like if we take DAI as an example, it can be collateralized by USDC and maybe one or two other stable coins. Ray Finance from Reflexor Lab is collateralized by Ethereum only. With our new product BAO USD, we will be able to collateralize our USD synthetic token by, I would say, 4 or 5 different collaterals that are like from Ethereum to some stable coins, and also from a vault that is composed of a few stable coins that are really safe and that generate some yield. So that's our first building blocks. And we created a sub-product that is called Delphi that is run on top of Oracle, on Chainlink's Oracle. And it gives us the option to create new oracles or formulas over Oracle. So if we want to do the ratio of Ethereum versus the Bitcoin, we can now create that ratio with Delphi. And only our imagination can provide the limits of that kind of new oracles, depending of the use case that we want. So for the next year, I think the challenge would be to bring more data on chain that is outside giving price, like stock price, token price, or commodities price. But having that data set on chain, we will be able to trade betting market in some way where we can, I would say, put our money where our mouth is. Where if we believe that the data that we could provide is accurate, coming from general person, we could create a world where it's everyone here who owns this data and can provide accurate data on chain and not centralized organization. So that's our long-term vision. We really want to be able to own the data that govern this world.
I did have a few questions, if you don't mind.
For sure.
And the first one being, other than synthetic currency tokens, what else do you think could be tokenized on chain? In other ways, like what are your thoughts on that?
And that's a good question, and I thought a bit about it during the first pitch. We could run like forex type of exchanges, decentralized, with that kind of synthetics, it would be really easy, because this is like the first step where we could have euro versus US dollars. That's the easy thing that could be done really fast. But at some point, if we want to do to tokenize any kind of data, we will be able to. We want to try to do like tokenize events, where it could be sports events, it could be political events, it could be just a trending of any sort. So you want to bet for or against an event, and that's how you do leverage on. Like, people are shorting or longing Bitcoin for a long time, and that's betting against a kind of event. So that's another way that we could tokenize data on chain to use them on a betting market. So this is something that we are looking for, but for any type of data, not just token price. So yeah, I think that the main challenge is really to not just see tokens as a financial product, but as a way to bring a data representation on the blockchain.
I have one more question, if you don't mind. I was just asking if my understanding of what you're doing is correct by saying that your data feeds and your information and whatnot can be used to kind of gauge sentiment or gauge how people think or feel in a given market or a given area that your data feeds provide information on.
Yeah, we really want to position ourselves in consuming data. We don't want to replace oracles such as Chainlink. We want to use Chainlink data or any kind of project that could bring decentralized data on chain, because we cannot be good at everything and we cannot do everything at once. So if there's accurate data, we want to consume and transform that data into insights, and people will be able to really leverage that data for many use cases. And what is exciting me with BAO Finance is that what we are doing right now, there's no equivalent or not too much equivalent on chain. It's not like we can say, hey, we will create the 50-second AMM on Ethereum. We are really adventuring on ground that has never been stepped into. So it takes more time than just doing something that is really achievable or that we have all the tech, because it's not all the data that we foresee we could use that is accurately on chain. So that's technically, this is one of the main challenges that our DAO is facing, is we believe that in 5 or 10 years we will see more decentralized data on chain and that could be governed and be of quality. But currently, this is not where we are. So we are doing building blocks to achieve that, and we hope that in 5 or 10 years, with those building blocks and with the data that will be on chain, we will be able to make great use of them.
Our next guest is Pub DAO. Netminer, would you like to introduce him?
Sure thing. So Pub DAO, thanks for joining us today. They're basically a media DAO seeking to redefine media production and distribution using Web3 tools. Pub DAO is an early stage media DAO offering written content as a service and building a platform for Web3 content writers find gigs.
Stage.
Sure, and thanks again to Governor DAO and to Blake and Netminer for hosting this. This is the second DAO Speed Dating I've gotten to participate in, and I really appreciate opportunities like this for DAOs to kind of mingle and learn what else is going on in the industry, because there's just like way too much exciting stuff to keep track of. So occasions like this make that easier. So yeah, that mission statement pretty much encapsulates what Pub DAO is up to right now. It was founded by some of the team at Decrypt, initially as a decentralized newswire DAO, but we've since kind of shifted gears after learning that there there wasn't as much of a need for that. And so we're kind of shifting more into, as that introduction explained, the written content as a service DAO, a decentralized written content as a service. So what that looks like now is we have a kind of an internal kind of talent pool of Web3 writers, like writers who have written articles or blogs or newsletters about Web3 content and have some degree of technical literacy, that land in our Discord and go through a basic onboarding process designed to kind of connect them with clients who need promotional content written for their product or service that requires Web3 native insight on behalf of the writer. And so, like, from the client perspective, the need here is written content, but not enough to warrant paying some in-house writer or some in-house kind of media department. So if some business or organization has a need for some promotional content to be written, if it's a monthly blog post or a newsletter or some Medium article, and they want to outsource the creation of that, then Pub DAO is looking to be who they're outsourcing that to. And Pub DAO is actually, right now, it's comprised of a inner kind of core of writers and editors, some of whom are affiliated with Decrypt. And we're kind of gradually building that pool of writing and editing talent by implementing certain onboarding pathways where writers and editors can share their portfolios and their areas of expertise or interest. And we keep all these in a database to cross-reference with what clients need. But the idea here is to actually build out a revenue model to be generating funds for the eventual Pub DAO treasury once it actually becomes a DAO, after the token launch. We want to have this business model in place for the token, for the utility token, the governance token, to actually function on top of, rather than issuing the token first as a source of speculative funding. And then once we have that revenue model in place, some of the cuts that Pub DAO is going to be taken from clients before the rest goes to the writers. The cut that Pub DAO takes, it's going to go to the Pub DAO treasury, and that's what's going to be used to fund written content as a public good. So there's the two halves of it. There's written content as a service that's commissioned by clients for promotional needs, and then there's written content as a public good. And the latter half is where Pub DAO is more of a media DAO. So the first half is a service DAO aspect, written content as a service. The second half is more of a media DAO, where Pub DAO is a platform for crypto native publications of pretty much any topic in Web3. But that's still more of an aspirational thing. We're actually planning the launch of our first newsletter publication to kind of start moving in that direction as well. But that's the vision, is to have a media DAO funded by our service DAO capabilities.
So can you tell us about some of the collaborative pieces that Pub DAO has completed?
Yeah, so the content that we've been producing so far has been primarily for the Learn section on Decrypt. So if you go to Decrypt's publication site, they have a Learn section where they focus a short form article on this or that technical area, like what is a Bitcoin node, what is miner extractable value, stuff like this. And they've compiled a big kind of repository of these articles now, many of which are sourced from Pub DAO writers. And then beyond that, we've had some posted to the Pub DAO Medium, but we're since shifting away from Medium, being a Web 2 platform. We're going to be shifting towards things like Mirror and Paragraph, more Web 3 native ones, and figuring out ways to kind of implement that with these platforms, so that we can offer Pub DAO writers certain kind of suite of access to things, like maybe they can have their newsletter sponsored by Pub DAO and gated by the Pub DAO governance token when that officially launches. But a lot of those particular partnership details still need to be worked out with the Web3 publication platforms. But that's been the gist of it so far. It's primarily content written for Decrypt's Learn section. So
how many Pub DAO writers do you have for Web3 content, actively, roughly?
Actively, it's our whole registry is right around 100 now, but in terms of people that are writing for Decrypt, it's only a small handful for Decrypt, and then we have a couple other clients that we're trying to lock in as well. And a lot of this is difficulties that aren't like inherent to the writing itself. And then we're also trying to figure out a way to, manage the kind of upskilling of writers, because we get a lot of people that arrive but don't have experience writing, and eventually Pub DAO would be suited to kind of upskill these people and give them the experience and the talents that they need to find paid writing opportunities. But right now there is still sort of almost like a kind of liquidity mismatch kind of difficulty that we're trying to grapple with in terms of the talent of the writers that show up. How long writers have to wait before they're connected with some paid writing opportunity, and then the specific technical insights that clients need from writers. And so a lot of it is just kind of this matchmaking that we're doing.
I'd like to know, where do you see Pub DAO in like the next 2 years?
Hopefully we'll have enough income from clients, or perhaps any other revenue model that we figure out. There could be plenty of other options here, but ideally we'd be a platform for Web3 writers to join, and it would almost kind of function as a union, at least how I'm envisioning it in that kind of long-term phase, where writers who join the Discord, the way it's structured right now is a writer joins the Discord and they're automatically put in the writers pool. So that's like a permissionless thing. You just go through this automated onboarding pathway in the Discord and you get slotted into the writers pool. And then there's a specific onboarding process for writers, for editors, for designers, for people who want help out with marketing or business development. And we're kind of fine tuning all of these different onboarding processes in parallel. But eventually, once we have our token launch and our membership pass, once a writer lands in this pool and goes through this onboarding process, they'll get, they could get access to some membership pass, and that's what would qualify them to join the Writers Guild. And that Writers Guild or the Editors Guild or the Designers Guild, these kind of groups are what would, in principle, function kind of like unions, in that they would grant certain benefits to members of it, which primarily would be access to certain gigs.
I wanted to ask one more question in kind of a different vein, and that's along the lines of, with journalism and written pieces in general, especially these days with heightened division and things like that in the political climate. Do you see Pub DAO playing a role in kind of bringing things back to facts and professionalism and bringing people together? Is that part of what you guys are doing?
Right now, we're not. That's not part of our immediate kind of short to midterm focus. But what is part of the conversation so far is general kind of upskilling or workshops we can do for writers who want to like learn more about a topic or refine their craft. A lot of that also, I think, gets into almost union territory or guild territory, where the services provided to members are like access to paid opportunities and also opportunities to like hone your craft. And so in principle, we could have workshops eventually that teach a certain basic journalistic practice about, weighing out facts and identifying your own bias, and like identifying when the information you're sharing is factual and when it's opinion. Because I think a lot of the problem with our polarized climate right now is that we don't always think to make that distinction when we're relaying information, and when we're like relaying highly opinionated information that we kind of pass off as objective. I think a lot of that eventually leads to the situation we're in now.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with you there. Anything else you'd like to add to tell our audience about?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to emphasize that Pub DAO is still an early stage DAO, and a lot of the core contributors like myself are still effectively operating on a volunteer basis, because we like the vision of Pub DAO. We like what it could become. There's really talented people working in Decrypt that are behind this, so we have confidence in the kind of founding vision of it and the capabilities and the resources behind it. But I want to emphasize that it is early stage, and so right now, what we're looking for, in addition to writing talent, is we're also looking for, if not writers, then people who are kind of writing adjacent or media adjacent, and who are interested in some sort of business development, or interested in wanting to get in on the ground floor and help kind of steer this ship collectively, because a lot of it is really community driven, and I think that gets at the ethos of DAOs for me. Of course, there are pros and cons of groups like this being community driven, but if you want to help, inform the development of Pub DAO, or learn how DAOs can work like this, or again, in our case, it's a proto DAO because there isn't a governance token yet, then that's the sort of person that we're ideally looking to attract right now. But eventually, once we have all these things tightened up, then we'll have a very kind of seamless onboarding process where writers can join, complete this really definitive onboarding process, and then have paid writing opportunities awaiting them. But there's still some basic business development that needs to be done to ensure that that's really intact.
Cool. Awesome. What's the best way folks can get in touch with you and Pub DAO if they want to get involved?
The best way is the Discord, which should be on the bio for the Pub DAO Twitter account here. If you go to the Discord, we have an automatic ticket and role assigning onboarding pathway where it's split up into contributors, partners, and clients. And so if you take one of those paths, if you take contributor, you can go, writer, editor, designer, marketer, biz dev, maybe others eventually. And so that's how we kind of compartmentalize all the different aspects of who's arriving and who wants to work with Pub DAO in what capacity. So if you join the Discord and go through those onboarding processes, we'll be speaking shortly.
Awesome. Very good. I'm going to go ahead and add the other speakers back up to the stage, and we can do some topic discussion.
Where do we see DAOs going in the next year and onward?
And it's open for discussion. So let's just talk about kind of DAOs in general, and
that includes regulation as well. What type of regulation people might see surrounding DAOs, and
yeah, and so just open discussion. Whatever anybody wants to chime in, go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess my main question is where do we see decentralized decision making being useful and centralized decision making being useful, and where do you draw those lines?
I think that's a good question, and it starts first with governance. What we did in BAO Finance with some governance proposal is to do a RACI in some kind of way. What are the power that we want to give to the contributors or the team that is currently working for the protocol, and what are the boundaries where they can run things and take decisions, and what they necessarily need to go back within the community to go to vote. Because at some point, like any non-profit organization or organization, there are some level of decision that someone can do. You don't want to do a snapshot vote for an expense of $200 if your treasury has 1 million inside it. So at some point, you need to have to define in your governance processes what could be decided centrally, because you have been trusted to do those kind of decisions, and what really needs to be governed and decided within the community. The other thing is in what I really believe, is to use transparency. So everything that is being decided, you should be able to explain why and be transparent around it. And so you can be like, we took the decision because of X, Y, Z, without having to do a lot of votes if it was within your power to do so. And the other thing is, I think within a DAO, those who contribute and those who work for the DAO always work with the best interest of the DAO itself. So it's some kind of guard. We guard or we prevent some harms for the DAO to those who try to invest in our governance token and see those tokens as a financial product instead of really seeing it as governance totally. And this is what I believe is harming a lot of DAO right now, is really people trying to bet as if it was a company. But it's a DAO, and sometimes it moves slower because of decentralized decision processes, or even because people are like you in Pub DAO, they are volunteers or they are part-time, and they are doing they are doing everything they do just by sheer passion.
So if I can
I
speak to
love
that
that.
just a little bit there, I would say that where do I see DAOs going in the next year? I would say both of the points raised previously kind of operate on one kind of underlying assumption, and that is that DAOs are going to optimize for productivity. So yes, in one word, I'd say optimization. Um, Optimization in terms of governance. There's obviously a lot of there's a lot of, how do you say, fat that needs trimming when it comes to DAO governance. There's a lot of kind of decisions that should be put to governance votes, and a lot that shouldn't. And the next kind of year is going to be just kind of a long figuring out process of, okay, like how can we optimize for efficiency here? How can we avoid getting kind of dragged down into the dirt while maintaining the values that we have of decentralization and stuff like that? And then in terms of how do you say it, finance, I would say that DAO treasury management is going to be a very big thing over the next coming months. That's actually something that I've been working on quite a lot personally over the last couple of months. And that's essentially the optimization of the value that DAOs hold within their treasuries. Like, are you going to earn yield on this? Are contributors going to be paid in this? What are you going to be doing with that value? And kind of just like streamlining the whole operation there. And then the onboarding process as well, optimizing the onboarding process. Like, there's it's a relatively small amount of people who can come into a DAO, learn everything by themselves with no help, and then kind of fashion themselves into a productive asset in that DAO. So an optimization of onboarding as well. That's going to be a big thing that we're going to see in the next year. Because if DAOs want to kind of harness the talent in the way that they kind of conceptually can, then they're going to kind of need to optimize these onboarding flows. So yes, all those three things with the common theme of optimization.
I could not agree more, because what people like most forget is that most DAO, most project are really juvenile in their processes, and they are almost like 1 year old, 2 years old at last. And I've never seen any company really mature after 1 or 2 years. So we need to grow fast, we need to mature fast, and streamline those processes, and like you said, to optimize them. And this is really the challenge. And I raise my hat to that, because you really pinpoint what I think is many DAO facing right now. But at the same time, with, I would say, this kind of bear market, there hasn't been since DeFi summer the best timing to continue to work and build without having too much hype. So I think right now it's a good climate to build and be ready for the next cycle.
Yeah, the bull market and the bear market are both kind of essential processes in onboarding. The way I look at it is that the bull market, the kind of manic highs that you get, just even if what all the hype is based on is just kind of crap, then it draws eyes to DeFi. You know, if you say, "Oh yes, I kind of like quadrupled my money in 3 months," like however kind of bullshit that is, people are going to look at that. You know, that's attention grabbing, so it kind of gives DeFi, it puts eyes on DeFi, and then when that kind of effect compounds over time, what you get is that it's not just kind of degens who are looking at this, it's you know, kind of more traditional investors, and then more institutional investors, and then what you're really aiming for is the kind of like big brains, I would say the giga brains, to kind of get involved in the space, go, hey, look, that this tech's actually really interesting, how can we push this forward? And that's where you're going to see the kind of exponential growth. But that starts with, in a lot of cases, this kind of mania and the memes. Like look at social media kind of being born out of, you know, like funny cat pictures, and then look at where it is now. So in a sentence, you often see big social movements born out of weird places.
I want to jump back to kind of what was talked about with governance tokens and governance in general, because I think what Governor Dow brings to the table with proof of existence as an interesting component to that, in that our proof of existence allows for one person, one vote governance, or any kind of voting system that is based off of knowing one person, one wallet. So, for instance, logarithmic or quadratic voting, or voting that would be based off of actions people have taken within the DAO. Being able to really actually guarantee that the voting process is secure, that people who join and are voting um, are have the interest in the DAO, or at least have put in effort, are important things that I think we're going to start seeing DAOs take on, whether it's through proof of existence or there's a lot of other decentralized ID protocols as well that are starting to come about. I really think that especially as the next bull market takes off, we're going to see more instances of DAOs being taken off guard that haven't protected their voting process, and I really hope that more DAOs start to take that a little more seriously, so that we don't see some big disasters like we've seen a few of in recent history. Uh, yeah, just I think security is going to be a big thing that's going to be. Well, we're already starting to see folks start to take it seriously. The Some of the recent hacks, or there was even some on-chain governance that was kind of hijacked by outside influences in the last couple months. And I don't know, what are some thoughts from you guys on those kinds of things, and is there anything you guys are doing beyond DID protocols and whatnot that to kind of just protect your governance structures?
Yeah, so we actually have we implemented a process that we call governance mining, and what that essentially is, it's a response to the problem of voter apathy and people just kind of holding tokens and receiving the yield and then doing absolutely nothing with it and not contributing to governance. So the governance mining process is you have to. So at Pai Dao, you have to stake the governance token, and then you have to vote on governance decisions every month in order to receive the yield. In order to be how would you say, a valid recipient of the revenues generated by the treasury. So TLDR, you're only going to get paid if you vote, and that incentivizes people to vote. It incentivizes people to get involved. You know, it means that people aren't just kind of going to well, set and forget with this kind of thing. And so that's one way that we've been trying to tackle it. With regards to governance as a whole, as regards to governance more generally, that's a really difficult one. I think we are, with regards to what I was saying about optimization, I think governance is one of the things that really hasn't been optimized at all. The kind of the typical, like, your vote is proportional to how much of the governance token you hold is functional, but I wouldn't say it's particularly well optimized. There are some projects that are kind of going about this in a different way. Optimism is a really interesting one with the two houses. That's a really good way of doing it. But there's other ways of doing it, like quadratic voting and stuff like that. But essentially, what you run into is that despite being a world that is predominantly based on code, you're still going to run into a lot of human factors. It is essentially, the code is in most cases representative of humans, essentially, and humans have all these kind of strange faults, and they act in all these strange ways, and then they act differently when they're in groups, and there's all these kind of things. So what really needs to happen is a way of using the code to circumvent the pitfalls of human psychology, basically. But yeah, how you actually do that, I haven't got a clue.
Yeah, you make some interesting points. Any other thoughts from folks?
Yeah, I have one idea for protecting governance from just anyone who can acquire the token, and this is still speculative in the case of Pub DAO's situation. But the idea here is that eventually, when we have the membership pass, people who go through a certain onboarding process, which kind of functions as a screen, as a sort of quality control, they would get access to getting this membership pass, which may even be free or maybe like a fixed kind of stablecoin cost. But then we would restrict governance power to those who went through this onboarding process. Like only people who possess these membership passes could use the ERC20 governance token. But this is still, like I still, this is still largely hypothetical. But I can see where this could, in principle, be easily implemented, and this could be a way to prevent speculators from squatting on governance power, which isn't necessarily a problem for every DAO or every project, but in principle, it could be one for what we're trying to do if we're trying to put governance power in the hands of people who are active.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the same idea that we have with our proof of existence token, which is, which I guess I can explain a little more while we're here. It's a privacy-focused biometric non-KYC solution. So basically, our proof of existence tech, we're partnered with Finovant or BioFi, the token is their token. And their biometric technology that they've used in the real world with banks and other things like that. We partnered with them to create our proof of existence protocol, which is when folks do voice and face in the tech. It's not, the biometrics are not stored anywhere ever. It's immediately hashed on the user's local device, and that hash is then sent in and tokenized, and that hash proves that that individual with that wallet is unique. They can't get a second token in a different wallet, and that can also be used as kind of a revalidation later for things like that has some applications in like play to earn gaming to ensure that the person is who they are at the given time that they're gaming. Yeah, so that can be used for revalidation with play to earn gaming and things like that as well. But the idea with can you remind me what you were talking about that I was responding to?
Yeah, that we would just have an onboarding process in place to prevent speculators from squatting.
Yeah. So yeah, the idea behind proof of existence is really similar to what you were talking about, and that when people are onboarded, you can know that they are who they say they are. From then on, you can also verify that they've been, the different projects can use that token as a proof that they are who they say they are and that they've done what they've said they've done. So like you can prove that they've been involved with a certain project, or you can prove, like if it's tied to maybe article writing, you can prove that they've written the articles they've said they've written. Things like that. But in terms of governance, it also just allows for tracking, yes, that wallet's done what it said they've done, and they're a unique individual and they're not trying to game the system. So yeah, there's a lot of cool ways that with what you're talking about that ties in really similarly to what we're doing as well.
Yeah, and something like that could, in principle, be incorporated into an onboarding process like what I'm describing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in talks with a couple folks about doing that with some other projects as well. So that's absolutely one of our main goals, is to help projects be able to customize whatever onboarding process they have and really have it be secure and sound, while at the same time protecting every user's privacy. It's kind of the best of both worlds in terms of projects can use it to ensure the security of their project while at the same time protecting the privacy and even anonymity of any of the users. So kind of a best of both worlds in that way. Thanks everybody for joining. It's been a great space. Really enjoyed hosting with you guys. Enjoyed having Netminer here with us as well. This was his first space co-hosting with me. So that was awesome. I want to thank everyone for joining us as we delve into all the cool things the different DAOs can do. I think we're really just scratching the surface and the next couple of years are really going to be exciting as we discover new things together. We'll be back next week for another episode. I'll be watching at GDAO Ambassadors for the announcement of our next guests in the next day or two. Please be sure to follow and get in touch with the projects that piqued your interest. You can check them out in the billboard at the top of the space, or if you're listening to the recording, check out hashtag GDAO Billboard. Also, definitely check out Governor DAO at governor_DAO, and our proof of existence at proofofexistence.xyz. You can get your proof of existence token right now for free. It's free plus gas at the moment. So you can do that at onlyoneMe at governordao.org. We talked about a lot of cool things today. Pai Dao has their Pi Vault tech with smart indexes, BAO Finance with tokenizing data on chain, and Pub DAO with some great tech and great ideas about helping writers and producing content in the Web3 world and connecting writers with jobs. And I think that's going to be a cool thing going forward for a lot of reasons as well. So yeah, it's been a great space. Look forward to seeing you all next week, and hope you all have a good one.
Thanks, Blake. Have a great one. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Have a great one.
Thank you guys for joining us.